Hi, 2-3. So let's get moving with math. We are moving on to lesson 14. We are skipping lesson 13 because lesson 13 we would need to be in the classroom using all these different resources. And like we talked about, that's not our reality right now. So we are going to be moving to lesson 14. Okay? You guys have been doing really well with Eureka and following the steps and trying your best. So let's just keep that up, keep that energy up, okay? So let's look at your instructions. The very first thing is you're going to watch my video that I made for you. The second, as always, is you're going to watch the video from YouTube, which is 5 minutes, which is right down here. You are then going to complete the problem set from lesson 14 today. Today's lesson is pretty short, so there is no application problem. It's just the problem set. And then, as always, I put the homework helper down here that you could click on to get extra support when you're doing your work if you need it, okay? All right, so let's look at what we are working with today. So today we're going to be looking at these arrays as a whole, and we're going to be talking about what happens if we were to be breaking them apart, okay? And how they would look broken apart. So we need to try to picture that we're taking this array, and if we had scissors, that we were cutting it apart, okay? So it says number 1, imagine that you have just cut this rectangle into rows. So again, always pay attention to the arrows so you know what rows mean. Remember, rows mean going across and columns mean going up and down, okay? So they want us to imagine that we cut this rectangle into rows. So what I want you to do when we have this activity today is I want you to pretend that you cut it. So you're going to go to your drawing, you're going to choose any color that you want, and I want you to just kind of go across like you were cutting it. Like, see how I'm going on the lines because it told me into rows? I'm using this as if I cut it into rows, okay? That would be my scissors in a way. So I cut it into rows, okay? So that's what it means when it says, what do you see? Draw a picture. That's what they want you to do first. They want you to just first do this. Now I'm going to draw a picture of what I see. So now if I'm cutting it, for example, across, what does that look like? Well, that looks like this. If I cut it into rows, I'm seeing one row of 4, correct? Like this. And then I would see, for example, another row of 4 by itself because I cut it out. And then I would have another row of 4. So notice how I would have 3 separate rows. 1, 2, 3 separate rows because I cut them. Like we're picturing as if we cut them out, okay? We don't have an array anymore. They're all the rows by themselves now. So then that's what they want you to do. First, draw the lines as if you're cutting across the rows, and then show me what that would look like if you did cut the rows out, okay? Then it says, how many squares are in each row? So now I need to look. In this row, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Same thing here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Same thing here, 1, 2, 3, 4. In every row, I have 4 squares. So I'm going to use my text box, and that's all I'm going to put is that I have 4 squares, okay? That's all you have to do for here. Now you're going to do the same thing here. It says, imagine that you have just cut, again, this rectangle, but now into columns. So now I'm going to get you started. I'm going to use a different color. Now columns are up and down. So now it's saying if you cut this column, if you cut this column, if you cut this column, what does that now look like? So now you're going to take all these columns and draw them here separate now. They're not together because we're not an array anymore. We're cutting apart the array. So what does that look like? So I will again start you off. Now, for example, Probably why, ask Miss Del Valle why she would choose yellow to, out of all colors, show you something. Okay, so what we're going to do is choose a brighter color, and I'm going to show you now if I'm drawing the columns how that looks. So this would be one column. If I cut this right out, I have this one column right here. Now I want you to finish drawing the rest of those columns. Again, not next to each other. We're not making an array. They're going to be separate because we cut them apart. And then you're going to answer the question, how many squares are in each column? So how many squares in the column? And you're going to put it there. Okay? So you have to finish this part and then fill in your answer here. Then it tells you, create another rectangle using the same number of squares, okay? So how many squares in total did we have up here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we had 12, okay? So they want you to create a rectangle down here that has 12 squares in it, okay? And you could create it any array that you want, but again, you have to use the squares. And you are going to create one that has 12, okay? And then you need to answer the questions, how many squares are in each row and how many squares are in each column, okay? Then we're going to move down here and it's pretty much the same thing. Now again, imagine that you have just cut this rectangle into rows. So again, you're going to cut it into rows. And then draw a picture like we did up there and how many squares are in each row. Then the same thing, use this same one. Imagine that you have just cut this rectangle now into columns. Again, you're going to draw that on here in a color, a different color. What do you see? Draw the picture. How many squares in each column? And then the last question, create another rectangle using the same number of squares. So you will count how many squares in total are here, and you will create another array here with squares that has the same number, but it has to be a little bit different than this. It can't have the same amount of rows here and the same amount of columns here. You have to switch it up and then answer these two questions, okay? So as long as you take your time, you follow the directions, this is pretty much it. If you need extra help, let me know, but also remember that please make sure you're watching this video as well as the second video and use that homework helper to help you even more, okay? But this is what you're doing today. If you need any other help, again, reach out to me. Take your time, read everything carefully. You got this, 2-3.